So I know the title of the call is labeled IT Complete. IT Complete is the name of our platform, or has been the name of our platform, which is essentially bringing together all of the tools that somebody would use for IT and security and management into a single platform where all the tools talk to one another, are tightly integrated. They all come on one bill, so they're a lot easier to manage because you only have one throat to choke when it comes to the vendor partnership. And you get the benefits of AI that can be applied on top of that to automate function that simply isn't possible with a variety of different systems. So that's been our vision for the last 10 years. A recent change is 365, which is essentially a way of saying, yeah, but you can make it even simpler for people to acquire this stuff if you think about the way that they actually utilize these tools in their customer environments. And so that's what I'll showcase for you today is 365. It's more or less going to be the new name for our platform. The core thesis for us is that IT is now fundamental to any business. I don't think this is like, rocket science to explain to people, but ultimately you can't run a bakery in today's world without a computing system because it's the only way you can process orders, take credit cards, communicate with customers, talk to your vendors, etc. And so ultimately, IT is the backbone of how any business functions. But most of those businesses in the world are small businesses and they don't have any expertise doing this. They know how to bake cakes. They do not know how to manage computers and networks and that kind of infrastructure. And so they turn to experts like you and they say, I need you to do that for me. And so, from our perspective, since they are dependent on technology and that technology is dependent upon you, you are the backbone of the global economy, and only you can save us from global peril. So, no pressure. But ultimately, that's our outlook. And it's harder job to do because the amount of requirements continue to increase. It's not like technology stays still. There's always something new to be dealt with. And there's also always new security threats. We're seeing more and more security incidents targeting small businesses, especially since the pandemic, where people figured out that it was a lot easier to go after small fish than it was after the big fish. It's cheap, it's easy to execute these attacks, and it just takes a few wins in order to be able to make a bunch of money as a bad guy. And so that shift has taken place. And I think that number just continues to climb because of that. The other aspect that we see is that most of our partners tell us, yeah, but the tools that I use are just not integrated or automated enough. So, in order to respond to all those security threats and all that additional work, I've got to take on more hours, more people, and more tools in order to get the job done. It would be nice if things would just work automatically and talk to one another. And so that ultimately is the premise for our platform. But the most interesting thing from my perspective anyway is the core problem we're trying to solve isn't, just how many tools you deal with. It goes to what the fundamental challenge is for most IT service providers. Because stuff like, changes in technology or new security threats or acquiring customers or, compliance, those are all symptoms to a greater disease. And the biggest disease in IT and security is the fact that when somebody in this role does their job well, nothing happens. Nothing's a really hard thing to sell, at least in my experience, right? It's how much more nothing do you want? How much are you willing to pay for that nothing? It's a pretty hard sales pitch. And the reason I say that is because if you think about it, anytime IT and technology just works, everyone's able to communicate, collaborate, process files, conduct business, and basically everything becomes transparent. You become transparent. So even though their entire productivity, their entire success as a business is predicated on you making nothing happen, it also makes you invisible because it means that the better you do, the less often they see how valuable you are because everything's just working. And ultimately, that gap from our perspective is the biggest hurdle that needs to be overcome for IT and security professionals. It's really why people struggle for budget and profitability and resources and respect and all those other things is because hey, Mr. Customer, you should really add this in order to stay secure. Why do I need that? I've never had a ransomware event, so why would I need that? And so again, the more success you have, the greater the gap in their willingness to pony up the dollars for it and invest in it. And so if a partner is going to help, then they have to do both. They have to basically treat the symptoms while curing the disease. And that means helping people be more effective doing their jobs every day, so increasing the performance, but also helping them demonstrate their value, showcase to people why you are such a valuable part of the business, the fact that most businesses cannot survive without you. And that is our job. And that's kind of what we've built our platform out to focus on, is an easy, affordable, and proven way to go out and say, I'm going to make the job easy to do and make it really easy for others to understand the value of what I do. And the driving principle behind that was that if you look at most people in the IT and security landscape, they end up using dozens of different tools across dozens of different vendors and platforms. Each of those costs a lot of money. Each of them comes with a different salesperson and support line and login and security protocol and interface changes, etc. And it's really, really hard to work in a landscape like that. In fact, most of the time, people spend their lives bouncing back and forth between all those different tools, different interfaces, different billing relationships, and customer relationships. And ultimately, that's just really, really hard. It's inefficient because this is not the most efficient and streamlined way to work. Basically, I always draw the analogy to it's as if I went into your garage and found tools made by a number of different manufacturers. So you've got a DeWalt drill and a Makita saw and something else, and they all work great up until the moment you realize that you want to take on a job that requires all your tools and you didn't charge the 18 different batteries with the 18 different adapters necessary to keep those tools functioning. Your neighbor's got just the Makita tool set, and he charges 2 batteries overnight, and he can hot swap them back and forth between each of the tools. All the tools are familiar in the hand, the same color, same trigger, same safety release, and they share accessories so that it's a lot easier to get the job done. Ultimately, that's the principle behind our platform, is get rid of the fragmentation and create a unified solution where everything plays nice together, because it would just be a heck of a lot easier to get the job done in that way. And I know that James mentioned before the eggs in one basket. I'll talk to that a bit at the end, but ultimately, the eggs in one basket is a good thing because it is unifying similar functions to make it so much easier to get the job done and to allow those functions to talk to one another so that you don't have to do every part of the job manually. So what we've done over the course of the last year is to start to think through, what is it people actually need? Not just what do they need, but how would you describe it in a way that their customers or any 6-year-old could understand. And so we basically redesigned our outlook on the IT and security landscape into 5 pillars. Maybe that someday there'll be 6, but right now I see these 5 as the sort of fundamental nature of IT and security management. And basically what it boils down to is, look, I've got all the devices. These are Macs, PCs, routers, switches, firewalls, phones, tablets, you name it. Anything that I look at and can physically touch and feel, that is a thing that needs to be provisioned and secured on a customer's network in order for them to get the job done. It's all the hardware. Secondary to that is all the people that sit behind that hardware, who are themselves a point of risk, right? They are the ones that could give up their credentials to ransomware or phishing attack. They are the ones who are daily logging into these systems and may be at risk. So I need to protect those people and their activities and behaviors. All those people and devices are throwing off data. And that's the lifeblood of the business. That's every customer relationship I have. That's every order I've ever taken. It's everything in my business. That data obviously needs to be preserved and protected from natural disaster, ransomware, human error, whatever the case may be. And then doing the work of supporting all those devices, people, and data is the team, you, someone that's taking on the task of IT and security management. You need to be able to communicate with those end users and take their demands and requests. You need to be able to collaborate as a team. And then finally, the 5th pillar, the one that gets overlooked so often, is the performance pillar, which is, okay, but how do I then show people that we're doing all the right things across the people, devices, and data, and that I as a team am functioning efficiently to get those things done, so that as a regulator for compliance purposes, or an insurer, or as a end user or client, that I can showcase for you the value of what I do. You need reporting to be able to do that. And so those are the 2 key initiatives for us, is to say, how can we bring all these tools together, simplify their use, and then also make it easier to showcase that performance. And so what we've done with 365 is to package out sort of the common elements. We found that nobody just buys an RMM anymore. If they're going to log in remotely managed systems, they're going to secure those systems with AV and anti-malware. They're probably going to want EDR to make sure that they can respond in real time to potential threats. They're probably going to want some basic web filtering to make sure people can't go to potentially malicious sites. And ideally, they're going to want somebody to answer the call at 3 in the morning, which is managed detection and response, so that if you're not around, somebody's there to answer the call in the event that something bad is happening. And then finally, they're going to want at least the basic backup capability to make sure that the data on all those endpoints is preserved, so that the business doesn't lose essential information. So what we did was put them together and just basically offer it as a single low-cost subscription. You can still get these items individually, so we don't mandate that anyone buy it this way. That's true of all the 365 alternatives. So you can still get just one thing or two things if you want, but it makes more sense for people to say, yeah, I'm just going to do all the fundamental essentials for endpoint management, being able to remotely manage them, secure those systems, and back up those systems, and do it all at one low cost. Typically, about a third what it would cost to go out and get these systems individually, you can get in 365. So you're paying a lot less. You can offer a standardized solution to your customer base. Here, this is how I provide IT and security for endpoints. And it's all done at a low cost, so it's affordable and profitable to be able to do. We appended that and actually late last year with user with the same principle. So how do we protect those people? Well, we make sure that they aren't falling for phishing scams by blocking phishing emails and making them aware through training how not to fall for the scams that might enter their inbox. And then finally, monitoring the web to ensure that if they have given up their credentials in the past, we know about it and can respond to it. But the linchpin of this particular subscription was cloud detection and response. That was thanks to our acquisition of SaaS Alerts. And ultimately, what this does is the same thing EDR does on an endpoint, this does for all SaaS-based applications. So more than 40 different SaaS applications are monitored and tracked. Anytime someone is exhibiting odd login behavior, odd behavior in encrypting or exporting their files, the kinds of stuff that would send off red alerts, now you get the triggered response to, and you can either automatically lock those systems or manually engage to remediate that issue. And then finally, same principle on the data side. Great, but if the worst happens, I need to know I can recover that data should the worst have happened. So we have that email and SaaS account backup for those users. Same principle, low cost, all built in, and it all talks to one another. So it's far more efficient to get the work done because each of these tools communicates with the other so that your job becomes easier and easier to do. On an a la carte basis, for managing your team, we have all the tools necessary for you to communicate, collaborate, and operate as an IT team. This means, taking service tickets from end users. This means dealing with the documentation for IT, and it means being able to showcase your value through the reporting that's provided. We also have a full backup suite, runs the gamut from local file-based backup on servers all the way through to Azure backup in the cloud and every point in between. And one of the key initiatives for this year is to put this into a single portal where you can kind of see every ounce of data as if it was water. I look at data like it's water falling from the sky, and it pools into streams and rivers and ponds and lakes and eventually the ocean. And what you want to know is, where is all that water? When is the last time it was backed up? What is my recovery principle for each one of those things, or my recovery response time? So I want that bird's eye view of every ounce of data I need to protect for my business all in one place. And that's what we provide with our backup solutions. And then we also have tools to help present your value, whether it be to those that care about it from a customer standpoint or a user standpoint, but also from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. So we can automatically document the actions that are taken, whether it be backing up or securing systems in a manner that's formatted correctly for compliance standards, insurance purposes, etc. And then finally, we also have hardware and services. So stuff that either helps back you up, like our NOC services and help desk, stuff that helps you sell, like true peer empowered services, our hardware, routers, switches, firewalls, those sorts of things, and tools to help evaluate environments for security purposes so that you can then apply the right solutions after that point. And the idea is that all this stuff comes together in one place. So we have Kaseya One, you log on once, and through that single sign-on, you have access to all the tools. But more importantly, all the billing's in one place. All your account support is in one place. Your subscription management is in one place. Your AI and all the assistance that we provide and the innovations we have all find their home in one place. So with one login, you kind of have access to the entire universe of tools and those tools all work together. The way we make them work together is by applying AI over the top. And so we've been investing over the course of the last 4 or 5 years in building out a three-stage AI. The first stage was to understand how people utilize the systems and be able to showcase to them, hey, you're not using a feature or a function that everyone else like you seems to be using, at least that has the same tool set. And Cooper would just give you recommendations or help you configure those features or functions so you could take advantage of them. In many ways, that was also a Trojan horse because while he was giving good tips, he was learning how people utilize the platform so we could take the next step, which is to build out Cooper bots. This is, all right, I know how people utilize these tools. Now let me go ahead and automate the entire process. So I see every time a password change ticket comes in, you follow these same 5 steps and 5 protocols and communicating with the user and changing the password in existing systems, etc. Great, I can just do all 5 of those steps for you. Same type of thing when it comes to testing users for phishing scams. Normally, you would have to go in, configure that test, and then whitelist it through whatever filtering software you were using. Well, ours talks to one another. So now if I want to do a phishing test, it automatically communicates with the filtering agent, allows that to go through, and then closes the door once it's done so that nobody else can leverage that door that you briefly left open. The whole idea is that all the software talks to one another and helps to save time and automate function. You can actually build your own. So we have the ability for you to create your own Cooper bots. Real simple example is that, okay, a ticket comes in. I want you to read that ticket. And if it includes any language associated with network connectivity or slow internet or lagginess, what most people hate and technicians can't stand is when the answer is obvious. You're not plugged in or not connected to the network. That might be why you can't connect to the internet. And so what you can do is say, okay, I want Cooper to automatically run an internet diagnostic, which basically just gives me the core connection parameters. And I want you to append the ticket with that. And so now anytime a ticket comes in that's related to that, I don't have to do the basic legwork of communicating with the user to find out if they're not connected to the network at all. Instead, the ticket within milliseconds has been updated with an internet diagnostic that tells me whether or not they're connected so I can actually go and address the real issue. It's just a real simple example. You can imagine all the different ways you can create if-then conditions where you have automated tasks occurring so that you don't have to do them all manually. You can actually go through multi-step processes. So if you have somebody new that you need to provision, you can have a little dialogue with Cooper as an AI and tell him, hey, we got a new employee. He's in this department, kind of looks and operates like this and should have these level of permissions. And what I need you to do, Cooper, is to go out and provision that user. So give him a ticketing account, give him a 365 account, make sure he has access to the right network shares, etc. All of that can happen automatically through one interface and one dialogue without having to go to 4 different places to get it done. And then finally, we have applied natural language processing, which is what a lot of people think of when they think of AI in today's context. This means being able to read and understand context. So he can look at a ticket. If someone's using a certain 4-letter word, he may be able to say, this one seems fairly negative. You may want to deal with it first, or respond to tickets. So something comes in, you've gone through a process of remediating it. And for good customer care, you want to communicate back and say, here's what I did, and your problem's been solved. Well, normally that just takes a lot of time to write. And most people don't have the time, between dealing with all the stuff they need to do, to take a pause and say, hey, Bill, I remediated your issue. Here's what I did. And if you have any future concerns, feel free to reach back out with us. Instead, Cooper can write that automatically. He can provide the summary of how you responded in a very pleasant way so that you have better ways of communicating with end users and keeping them happy. The idea is to take away as much of the mundane work by, again, allowing the AI to do the job for you when it can. And then when it can't, he hands off to you and says, here's something too complex for me to handle. You've already gone through, I think, and worked with our team on a profit fuel exercise, so you know what this is all about. But ultimately, the goal is to be able to provide savings in addition to this kind of efficiency. And we do that through an exercise called Profit Fuel, where you basically tell us what you have and we audit that and look for the duplication of function, the waste, etc. And then compile a report that showcases what life would look like on an integrated platform, usually saving about 20 to 30% off your existing cost, but also gaining all that efficiency of an integrated system. And the idea is that it's the kind of platform that stands up to the test because of the reporting that's included on the back end. So you can actually showcase the value of everything you're doing through detailed and automated reporting. In fact, Cooper AI is being applied to the reporting function, where in the future you'll be able to go in and just say to Cooper, I need a report for X, Y, and Z, and have him write and generate that report without you having to manually go in and set parameters and those sorts of things. He can sort of generate on the fly through natural language. So really exciting innovations happening there. And it also comes from somebody who stands by their work. So we have a set of pledges that we make to our partners that allow you to basically do things like select a contract term, 1 or 3 years. Obviously, 3 years costs less than 1 year because people like predictable revenue, but you have that flexibility. More importantly, when the contract is up, we can't raise your price more than 5% plus the consumer price index or rate of inflation. So if you sign today, hey, 3 years from now, the most I could expect an increase would be what is in today's dollars about 7%. Today's rate of inflation would be the max it could go up. It won't always go up that much, but that's the max it could. So you can forecast out 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what it'll actually cost to run your business. If you find that your needs change, we have a flex billing program that lets you take dollars that you're spending in one place and move them someplace else. So if customer relationships change or your needs change, you can adjust to that without having to invest more and waste money on stuff that you don't use anymore. And then for our MSP partners, the ability to respond to a catastrophic loss by forgiving licenses when necessary if it threatens your business as a result. The whole idea is to put everything into a single platform, automate it together through AI, and make it cost effective so people can be more efficient in getting their job done. I will quickly touch on this just because the magic phrase was used at the start of the call. I hear this every single time I talk about our platform is sounds great. Love the idea of everything talk to one another, but I'm just not sure I should put all my eggs in one basket. It's the most common refrain to this type of thinking, and I get it. The difference, however, is that I don't look at it like it's putting all my eggs in one basket in a negative context. And that's for two reasons. One is if you think about the way that technology life cycles work, most products become platforms and those platforms eventually become products. Well, it sounds like sort of circular logic, but the example is simple. If you think about going back 40 years, if you're old enough, you carried a cell phone, a PDA, a pager, a digital camera, and maybe a portable music playing device. And those were the tools that you used. Each of them had a battery and a screen and whatever, but ultimately those are the tools you used to be productive and entertained when you were on the road. But all those have given way to your smartphone. Now that's all your eggs in one basket. If you lost your mobile phone, you'd still have your pager before, you still had your PDA. But now if you lose your phone, you lose everything. But it's worth it because those functions that have a natural affinity for one another, you can do so much more. In the old world, if you took a picture, you wanted to share it with a friend, you have to go home with that camera, plug it into your computer, download the file, and eventually attach it to an email. And if you're lucky, 3 days later, you've shared the photo with your friend. Now you snap it and instantly it's being shared. That's the benefit of these integrated systems, is that they can do more than fragmented ones. And so I don't look at it like people are, putting all their eggs in one basket. I look at it, they're choosing to buy an iPhone instead of a phone, a pager, PDA, iPod, and camera. I would even hazard to guess that in 5 years' time, max, nobody's going to buy individualized tools for IT and security management anymore. It's going to be platforms because typically, as we've done with our 365 solutions, if you're managing endpoints, you probably want to secure those endpoints. If you're securing them, you probably want to back them up. And if you're doing that for those devices, you probably want to do it for the people as well. And so before you know it, you just realize that it's like an iPhone. All of those tools would be better if they lived in one ecosystem and could collaborate and communicate with one another to make the job easier to do. It's also funny because people say like eggs in one basket, and yet that's how eggs are sold, is in one basket. And the reason for that is because if I gave you a dozen eggs to carry freehand versus a dozen in a carton, you'd find that you're more likely to drop them when you're carrying them freehand. Well, dropping them in the context of IT and security is an invoice I don't pay for one of the tools I have because I've got too many and I forgot. It's a configuration I don't port from one system to another because I've got too many and I forgot. It's a login I didn't give to a team member so he can't get his job done effectively because I've got too many and I forgot. Or it's a workflow step. The 7 things I need to do to provision a new user, and I forgot one because I got too many and I forgot. So ultimately, packaging these solutions just makes them way more manageable because they all are in one nice, neat basket versus being separated. And they're unified, just like you would have an iPhone unifying functions for your communication and collaboration. We could be wrong, but that's where we see the market going. And it really is the principle behind our platform. Take everything, put it together into a single unified place to get the job done, make it as low cost as possible, and then allow it to showcase through reporting all the great work that you're doing so people understand the value of IT and security for their business.